Good morning. How about them Jets and Giants? So this is two stories, but before we get underway, a little behind the scenes action. Initially, I had two stories, and I taped the first one on Monday. That's the Saturday, Sunday. I think it was Sunday. Was it Saturday? This weekend. It was Sunday. I taped it Sunday, yesterday. And it was a story of the sunrise that I sent out on Saturday. And it wound up being pretty long video. And the second story I had was the fence story. I've talked about the fence story. The fence story would be an even longer story. The fence story goes back literally years. And so I thought, I really need a second story to go with the sunrise story, like a shorter story, which I didn't have until after I taped the sunrise story, first version, yesterday. And then I actually wound up with a second story, shorter story, yesterday, and you'll see that later. So what this is, I decided I was going through the video of the sunrise story, and it was a bit of a mess. I was all over the place. I kept taking stuff out because I was repetitive. It was a mess. So what this is, I'm just gonna redo the sunrise story and shorten it up, tighten it up for you, the home viewer. What the sunrise story is really is a follow-up to the video that I sent on Saturday in the Good News chat. The sunrise I didn't think was great. It was okay, but that's the thing with sunrises. You sort of anticipate if they're going to be okay, and you get out there, and sometimes everything aligns and it turns out to be a beautiful sunrise, and sometimes everything aligns and it doesn't turn out to be a beautiful sunrise, and that was the case with Saturday. At one point on Saturday morning, before the sun came up, it started to look good. The sky started to turn pink, and because there was no wind, the water was calm, and it acts like a mirror. So it reflects. So you had pink in the sky, you had the pink reflection in the water. It was starting to look pretty good, and just then some guy walks up, and he's got his camera and he's shooting, and he goes, "Hey, great sunrise, right?" And I said, "Well, it's got the makings of a really nice sunrise, because here we are." And so he left, and the sunrise, it just didn't turn out to be great. In fact, the video that I used that I used for the video I sent out on Saturday, most of the shots were shots of the sun already above the horizon. And usually for a good sunrise, the best part usually happens before the sun even comes up. Okay, so what happened? Well, so most of the time, if it doesn't turn out to be a good sunrise, you don't know. It just doesn't. So Saturday night, I'm watching the local news, and a weatherman did a story on just this. Here's what happened. The sunrise on Saturday wasn't great because of smoke from wildfires from California. California. Unfortunately, they're having another bad season of wildfires, and the smoke rises up in the atmosphere, and the guy he pictured it out. It gets up in the jet stream, and it goes across the country, and it just happened to come into DC on this weekend. So usually, you go and you sort of anticipate, will the clouds sort of align? Will the vapor loops be such that by the time the sunrise happens and you're there at the lake with the clouds and you just never know. So in this case, this is just a follow-up to what happened. It was because of the smoke. Okay, that's story number one, and we do have a second story coming up right now. And welcome back. So after doing the first story earlier today, I thought, it came out longer than I thought. I thought it was like a 5-minute story, and it came out a little longer. So I thought, I don't have a second story, and rather than just wait, I'll just, instead of two stories, I'll do one story, and it'll be fine, because really, who cares? So it's too bad I don't have a short story. So I go and turn on the TV, and what I do when I turn on the TV is, before I watch anything, I call up the grid, the guide, and I just go through my channels, my favorite channels, see if anything's coming up, make sure the TV's recording what I want it to record, then I'll start watching something. And as I'm going, when I put the guide on, I put on either CNN or MSNBC, something to listen to as I'm going through the guide. So I turn on the TV and I'm going through the guide. And it's one of the cable channels. They're talking about the Queen, and all of a sudden I hear I'm going through the grid, going through seeing what's on, and all of a sudden the volume stops. I don't hear anything. I didn't press pause, and so that's why don't I hear anything? I take off the grid, and up in the right hand corner of the TV I see something different. It says mute. I've never seen that display before. I didn't hit mute. Why did it do this? I usually use the remote for the cable, not for the TV. So I thought, oh, maybe it's a TV issue. It's a TV issue. So I do some Googling. I try to find the guide. I go on the internet, and it says you should do a reset. Do like a hard reset on TV. Fine. So I do turn it off, and then I come back on. You hit the button, and then while you hit the button, you press power, and it reset. So we're doing the reset. Okay, good. We'll do the reset, and that'll be fine. So it does the reset, and it's like resetting your TV for when you get it out of the box. You have to set everything up. So we're playing that game. Okay, set up the Wi-Fi, and what's your password? I don't know. And then so we're looking for channels. It's going to do up to 30 minutes. It's like, why? It's just why is this happening? This should be a separate rant, really. So we play through we get the password, and we get the Wi-Fi, and finally the TV comes back on, and it finds the channels, and there's no audio. What a day for New York football. So I wanted to break into the story, which is sounding more like a rant, if you ask me. And I never mentioned anything about hitting the mute button on any of the remotes, which I did. And so I'm wondering if you're watching this and saying, well, it's a mute issue. Why don't you hit the mute button? And I did. I hit the mute buttons on all the remotes, and it didn't do anything. The display, again, the mute in the upper right-hand corner, I had never seen that before. My audio volume display is on the bottom left-hand corner, the little green bars. And as I was hitting the volume control on the remote, I could see the volume increase, the little green bars increasing on the bottom left, but I couldn't hear anything. So I'm wondering, it's a mute issue. Big guy, hit the mute button. Hit the mute button. I never mentioned that I tried, and I tried hitting the mute buttons, and just they didn't work. Okay, the rant's getting pretty good. Let's go back to the rant. So I call up Sony Help, and it's a weekend, and so they're not going to help me. So I send them a letter. Here's the model number, and this is the picture, the screenshot of the mute. How do I unmute this? I go on the internet. How do I unmute this? And I realize that it's not a TV issue. It's a cable. I don't know how I realized this. It's a cable issue. So instead of dealing with the TV part, I'm now into the cable. Okay, the menu of the cable, and I'm in there. And as I'm in there, into the menu, my brain's about to explode. The menu of the cable options, and I'm going in there, and it doesn't say how to unmute, but they're talking about the different types of audio for theater mode or stereo mode I don't know. I need someone to help me. Melissa, why aren't you here to help me with this? So, long story longer, as I'm playing around in the guide through the cable, and meanwhile I'm calling up Verizon. Come on up to Verizon. Calling up Verizon. I just need someone to tell me, because I think it's a cable problem. How do I unmute this? And so as I'm in the inner workings of the menu of the cable, I'm going through the different audios and the volumes, and I click something, and I hear it's working fine, good. And what I was doing at the time, I was playing back CBS Sunday Morning. Just I thought maybe, okay, the live cable doesn't work, but maybe my pre-recorded. So fine. So I hear audio on my pre-recorded, my DVR shows. Good. So I turn that off and go to live cable, and anyone? No audio. Of course not. So I go, at least I know where to go. So I go back. This took an hour. I go back into the menu of Verizon, the cable, and I'm all the different options, and with the TV in the background, I hit something because now I know what I'm doing because I was just there. I click something, audio comes back, but it took an hour. It took an hour, but best part, I had a second story. 2 stories, 2 big stories, and we fixed the audio. You know what it is? I think you do. We'll see you next time right here on the YouTube.